Okay, so welcome back. Okay, so I want you guys to think about that experience now. We've done nature journaling and field observations. What was this experience like on its own and compared to that one? Which one did you prefer?
Journaling.
How many of you prefer journaling? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got a middle person. How many of you preferred field notes? Okay, so 2 people for field notes and the rest of us for nature journaling. Okay, why did you prefer field notes, Tyler?
It's kind of more comfortable for me, I guess.
Okay.
I've been doing kind of this for my job all summer, collecting with Aaron.
Okay.
So I guess, just makes more sense to
So
me.
it's becoming second nature.
A little bit,
Yeah.
I guess, starting to.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of how it is for me too. When I go out and observe plants, even if I'm hiking and I'm not intending to collect, I think about these data points all the time as I'm just walking. Because it becomes part of your observation repertoire. You know, those are the things you start to learn to observe, data that you're constantly feeding into your brain and putting out on paper. But I prefer nature journaling because I prefer the creative aspect of it. But you know, that's okay. All right, so how about finding the plant? What was your experience in field notes versus nature journaling? Which was easier? Some of you say journaling. Did any of you say field notes? Sam says field notes. Sam, do you have a question?
No, well, I mean, I kind of like a combination of both. I realized when I was trying to help him find it, I did a better job when I was journaling, because I wrote out way more than on this. And I basically just gave directions and a couple of things on here that was I hope you can find it kind of thing. I realized, oh, that was worse.
Right, because you were taking the cue right on your nature journaling experience. Okay. So yeah, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I also noticed that the first time I wrote all the descriptions, I thought it was plenty, and then when you went to go search, I could have added more. But it wasn't until someone else was trying to find it when I realized that.
Right. Yeah. And that's why that's the exact reason why we did this pair and share experience. So I paired up with Hayden, and he gave me his field notebook, which I thought was very well done, and I'm going to just share with you what he wrote. Okay. So first of all, he's got at the big date, the date today, and his name, which is really important, his collection number, the time. He put the time down, and I neglected to mention that. So the time is usually something that is not recorded, but I started recording it in my collections where I'm doing what's called population level surveying, because, and for this reason, when I do population collecting, I'm out to collect a number of different plants of the same species across the big population, but I only voucher the population. I don't voucher every single individual that I'm taking leaves from that I'm going to use for genetic work, because no herbarium wants 100 vouchers for the same plant at the same site. They don't. They want 1 voucher for a population. So I voucher once, but I've started writing the time down of each of my collections because I take pictures of every single plant. And the timestamp on my phone and the picture helps me to correlate that with my DNA collection number. So you might think about that, okay? Elevation, 5290 feet. Location, he's started out and he's listed this. USA, Utah County, Pleasant Grove. He says Kiwanis Park, mouth of Battle Creek Canyon. He gives us the coordinates. Now, I could have pulled my phone out and used his coordinates to help me go to that spot. And I routinely do that in my career. My whole life is a big geocaching hunt. It's really quite fun. And that's why taking GPS coordinates is one of the best ways to take locality. Sometimes, and I'm gonna tell you a bad habit that you shouldn't get into, but when I'm collecting hundreds of specimens a day or a week, sometimes I just record the geographic coordinates. And then later I'll fill in the location by putting my coordinates into a big Excel spreadsheet, pulling it up on a map, and then doing it that way. But it is never as good as the original experience, because it's really hard to say, and Hayden learned this also because I was struggling to know how far up the trail. I'll just read you his location. He says, east of the pavilion, between upper and lower fire pits, directly south of the trail going up Battle Creek Canyon. On west-facing slope, and then he says oak to the west of the plant, small yellow flowers next to the plant. Okay, so his locality though was directly south of the trail going up Battle Creek Canyon, east of the pavilion between the upper and lower fire pits. Now, there's a big fire pit down there, and then there's a fire pit right here. And I didn't know about that fire pit up there. I've never been up there. I didn't know that it was there. So I was like a little bit confused because I was like, this one, but he said east of the pavilion. So there's no way it could be over there because that's west of the pavilion. So I was struggling a little bit. So then, but I kind of knew that it was going with the east of the pavilion. And then he's put it on directly south of the trail. And he recognized that this was going to be a challenge because there's the main trail right over there going up the canyon, but then there's this little trail here. And it was this little trail that he was talking about. So the more specific your locality can be, the better, right? But always take geographic coordinates because that will help you a lot, okay? So we headed up there, and then he says, oh, I probably should have said like a distance from a location. So he said, I would amend it to say 20 yards beyond the pavilion up the trail. And then when he said that, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I saw the fire pit, and I started reading his flower descriptions and associations. So he says, oak to the west of the plant. Well, there's oak everywhere. And actually that oak was actually probably to the south of the plant. But I started looking for an oak. They're big and easy to find, right? Small yellow flowers. I started looking for an oak with small yellow flowers. Then he writes this, observations, flowers purple. Purple in color, leaves about a ½ centimeter in width to 2 centimeters in length. Leaves have serrated edges. Leaves palmated, compound leaves with 3 leaflets. Leaves are alternate. Seeds, bundle at the top of the plant. Seeds are brown and spiral shaped. Plants stand approximately 1 to 2 feet off the ground. Excellent description. Immediately I was able to find the plant based off of the description. It was Medicago sativa alfalfa. So then a couple of other things that I mentioned as we were talking about the observation that I realized I didn't tell you to take in field notes. And that was, he was light on his association, so I told him to beef that up. But about the prevalence of the plant and the general area of where it's at. So alfalfa is a plant that grows in open areas and usually undisturbed areas. It's a weed. It's not native, and so it's probable that that plant got established from a horse that pooped going up that trail, right? That's just how it happens. So it was a very disturbed area, and we noted that, oh, there was probably, it was a small population with probably 15 to 20 plants in the area. Okay, so you want to note that as well. Okay, any questions or comments? He then went back and added the 20 yards to his direction. He added associations, and he also added the identification after I told him that. Good job. Sam?
So I just want to go over the 4 things you want again. So you want like your name, and then the number, location, date. Well, I guess it's not 4, but I have that number. Anyway, location and date, then you want a description of the leaves and what they're next to, and then the coordinates. And that was like it, right?
Elevation.
Oh, elevation too. Okay.
Okay, aspect. Whether it's on a slope or not. And if it's not on a slope, then say level ground.
Okay.
And if it's on a slope, can you estimate the direction that that slope is facing? Why is that important? What direction? Have you guys noticed that when you look at the Wasatch Mountains, there's sloping, like triangle slopes, and one side only has trees on it, and the other side is usually have a different kind of tree. Have you noticed that? That's because of the directionality of our sun. Because we are in northern latitudes, the sun is always to our south. And it circles along the horizon like this to the south as it sets in the west. It's not to the north of us, it's to the south. And that means that south-facing slopes always get the most sunlight. South and west-facing slopes get more sunlight than north and east-facing slopes. That will dramatically impact where plants grow in Utah, in northern latitudes. So slope is an important point, okay? Observations about what's around, we call that associations. Some details about the plant, in particular noting flower colors, leaf size and shape. If you're taking pictures of the plant and you're putting it in iNaturalist, you might want to include the observation number. in your field book. Therefore, you can link the two. If not, if you're only taking images that you don't intend to upload to iNaturalist, you might want to write down the image number on in your camera so that you can tie them together later. I did that again by noting the timestamp. That ended up backfiring on me because my camera, unbeknownst to me, it was GPS enabled and it would change to the current time zone. So that later became a problem for me. But anyway, that's just the kind of thing. So did we miss anything? Does anybody know?
Well, I just have a question. With the aspect thing, I could say right here on this little hill, maybe it's, facing west or northwest, but the bigger, like, geographic landmark is gonna be this whole mountain here. So, do you kind of say both? Like, I'm on the, south side of this whole mountain, and then on this littler hill, it's facing west, or kind of how would you deal with that?
Well, the mountain kind of becomes more of a landmark in my opinion. So if this Bowery is here, it's going to shade out those plants. If the Bowery was gone, and these taller trees also might shade that plant, but I mean, that could become part of your locality as a larger part. You could, but I wouldn't think that you would need to do that. You might say on the west slopes of the Wasatch Range, but that's a huge area, right? And so, yeah, I think it's okay to do the little aspect rather than the big one.
Okay.
Because even here, you'll notice as you back up and get further west and look back, that the little nuances of, even on just a part of this mountain, will change what plants grow where. Here's an example. When I was an undergraduate, I started studying what's called Erythronium grandiflorum, the glacier lily, and I was doing a population study on it. And I came upon one location where it was growing along a trail, and the trail was pretty much west facing, but then it curved and went like that around this hill. And it was less than 50 feet in that population. It was about half south facing and half west facing and north facing. The flowering times in that population were different, such that the north facing plants flowered much later, and therefore they could never exchange gene material with the west facing plants. So there was essentially a genetic cut. There were essentially two genetic populations in that geographic population. That's how fine of a difference that aspect can have on plants. It will affect flowering time, fruiting time, presence and absence, etc. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So, which one do you think is more applicable, nature journaling or field notes, for our experience collecting plants? Probably field notes. Yeah, okay. So for your assignments, both the nature journaling and the field notes, I want you to take images of your paper and upload them to Canvas as part of your assignments for today, for this week, okay? I also, and you don't have to fill out the form, the UVSC collection form, but I'm going to be looking at your field notes to note whether or not you have the data that you need to fill out that form, if it's that specific, okay? Okay,